Welcome to the FMCG Guys, the podcast that dives into the innovation, strategy, and trends shaping consumer goods and retail in Europe and beyond.
Welcome to the FMCG Guys podcast. Daniel Torres here, live from Barcelona this week. We're ending 2025 and very excited about 2026, which will be when this podcast will release. We're starting the year strong. We'll be at CES and NRF. We'll actually see our friends, the CPG guys, who I wanted to give a shout out to for their great effort this year. I think they reached 40,000 followers on LinkedIn, I believe, and 500 episodes in this 2026. So I wanted to give a big shout out to Peter and Sri. And you'll also see us at Shop Talk Lux at the end of January and Gulf Foods in Dubai as well. So pretty exciting beginning of the year. And we'll be driving a lot of community events during the year. Also Candid Commerce with our friends from Kin Marketing in London, most likely in March. So yeah, watch this space, and also a lot of exciting guests this year. And of course, as you've seen in the title, today's is no exception. I would say she's a friend of the podcast, even if it's the first time she's been on the podcast, which is surprising, but I'm glad we finally got her here. It's no other than Natalie James, who's the head of European e-commerce at Brown-Forman. Hey, Natalie, how are you?
Hey, thanks so much. Well, what a nice welcome. And yeah, super delighted to be here today. And exactly like you said, I think our paths have crossed for many times across many years. And finally, I'm here.
We met in the OG of Shop Talk Europe's of this new generation, which was Shop Talk London in 2020, yes. Shop Talk Europe in London in 22. I think Efrain introduced us, right?
I think it was, yeah. Old colleague from mine we both used to, I worked at Diageo in my start of my career. So yeah, we had some things in common, and then you introduced us. So yeah, it's great to be here. So thanks for the invite.
Oh, I'm glad we finally made it. And I know that you live in Surfland in the French Basque country, right?
I do. Did my French accent not give it away?
It doesn't. You hide it very well.
So I have the absolute pleasure of being able to live in the Basque Country, on the south west coast of France. Whenever I say I live in the south of France, everyone says to me, "Oh, they always think about the sort of French Riviera side." I'm like, nope, it's not like that. In fact, it's a bit like Wales, but on steroids. It's like green, luscious, big waves, and lots of fun things to do. So yes, we've been fortunate enough to live here for quite a few years now.
What do you think? What do you like of living in that part of the world?
Oh, I know it sounds cheesy, but it's the nature. It's just so epic, like the mountainous regions and all the outdoor activities that you can do. So I've got two teenage boys who are very active and sporty, and we all enjoy being able to ski. I give surfing a go, but a bit like my French, I think I've plateaued in recent years. My sons have overtaken me very quickly, but yeah, just all the outdoor activities with nature, and obviously having such great access to so many other European countries. We just love to be able to travel. So yeah,
and the food is also very good there, because you have the French food, but also you have the food from the Basque Country, which is
you are right.
There always says, "Oh yeah, like the food is at another level," right?
Just sport for choice, to be honest. I mean, so many Michelin star restaurants, like you said, and then really good fresh seafood. And then, being able to just go over to the border to San Sebastian and enjoy the super pinchos over there as well. So absolutely sport for choice. And yes, our bellies are very fortunate, never enough to be hungry, because we just are sport for restaurants. It's wonderful.
Yeah. How long have you been living there now?
It's coming up to about 8 years now. So yeah, we moved here when the children were quite young. We really wanted an adventure. We wanted to move abroad. So yeah, we moved out here about 8 years ago.
Very cool. But obviously, Your accent kind of says you live in France, but I think it says a bit more that you're from England originally.
I don't know what gave it away.
I don't know. I don't know. Not sure.
Yes, so I've moved around quite a bit really. So I was actually born in Kenya. So I was born in Africa when I was little.
Really?
I know, there's a shocker.
What were your parents doing there?
It was actually with my dad's work. They moved over there a long time ago. My dad was what was called a lithographer, which is where they printed on the cans, and he worked for a company called Metal Box, and they helped design the Coca-Cola cans. And so he set up an entire factory over there to print the cans. So we moved over when my sister was like 2 years old, and then I was born not long after. And then when it got to schooling age, my parents decided to sort of move back. And then I've moved in. Probably the longest stint was in Worcestershire. Hereford and Worcestershire is where I lived for a while, and then moved around the UK a bit. And then I went traveling for a short while and lived in Australia for a bit.
And how did you end up in FMCG?
It was probably my first proper career move, to be honest. I left university with this idea I wanted to work in public relations, and I actually had 2 very short stints.
It suits you.
Well, it kind of does and doesn't. I liked it at the time, but I think once I'd done it for a short while, I thought I think I'd rather be on the company side, not the agency side. I wanted to see how that went, and I was lucky enough to get an opportunity working for Britvic soft drinks, proper sort of rookie entry level job, sort of sales rep, living out of my car.
So did you decide to take a kind of like lateral move or not even?
I think it was just like a complete career move jump, really. I don't think my skill set was that good in terms of writing news reports and press releases. That wasn't really my bag. I'm actually also a little bit dyslexic, so probably not the best one for me to move into. So I was actually better talking to people and being around people, and so this is probably where it lent itself better into sort of into sales. So I ended up moving into Britvic, and that was where I kicked off my career in FMCG.
Very cool. So you started really like in beverages.
Yeah,
it's really like your foundation. Obviously, you were there. Then you were at Diageo.
Yeah,
and then you did like also the whole on-trade, off-trade thing as well.
Yeah, that was a great career stint, to be honest. And obviously working for Diageo as well, with obviously also loads of good brands as well. So I started off working in. It was a bit of a. It was a kind of a baptism of fire, if you will, to join, because I went straight in, fairly sort of young rookie level going in, but looking after wholesale. So ended up spending a lot of time in wholesale cash and carry, looking after Landmark and Today's group. And it's probably worth saying, whilst things have changed quite a bit, but back in those days, it was quite a tricky role to be in as a young female going into what was probably quite a male-dominated environment.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah,
looking after Guinness and whiskies.
Yeah. How was that?
It was, do you know what? It was such a good learning curve, and I was really lucky to have such a great group around me. The team were amazing, and I had a lot of people that were really good mentors and supporters of me. So they kind of knew that it was tricky, and they were always really good at kind of having my back. So that really helped. I think overall it kind of taught me a lot to how to flex your style in with different customers and within different channels. It'd be quite different dealing with one customer to another in different channels. So for me, it kind of gave me that experience of how you flex your character to get the best outcome. So it was a great grounding. And then being able to I did sales and then category, and that was a deliberate move because I saw they started to invest very much into a large category team, and I wanted to learn more about that side. And then I got the opportunity to also work in the on-trade. So it was a really good exposure of different areas of the business and also different functions.
And that kind of like the good thing of doing these cross-functional moves early on is that kind of future-proofs your career as well, because then you have the doors open to sales, category management, on-trade, off-trade, which
exactly.
Actually I'm curious to know. Well, there's a couple of things I want to double click on. One is that you left Diageo and you took full-time parenting for over 1.5 years. So a lot of people would see that as like a career suicide. I'm curious to know how did you come to that decision to do that?
Yeah.
And second, obviously, it wasn't a career suicide for you. So I think it's a great example, no?
Yes, yeah, definitely. And yeah, that's a really good question. I love the fact that you've picked up on that. So, yeah, we decided to have our kiddies quite close together, and ultimately, you know, when we both had big jobs, my husband and I both had big jobs, long commutes going into the city, and it was like the family worked when it was a well-oiled machine, like everything worked slick. You know, it was really good. But when somebody got sick, the wheels just fell off. And my second child, my second born, my son, was just had lots of illnesses. Nothing major. He had a couple of ear
But
problems.
some kids just like
He was just sicky.
have more health, like again, not severe health issues. They just they catch everything, no?
Exactly. And of course, when you're working and you go back to work career-wise, so I did try it. I went back into work. I tried part-time, but because I had such a long commute into the offices and obviously the traffic's bad, if anything went wrong, I was always like an hour and a half, 2 hours away. And, you know what the M25 can be like at times. And so for us, it was one of those ones where I didn't feel like I was doing very well at either. I wasn't really being able to give my work 100%. I wasn't able to give being a mum 100%. So we decided that something was going to have to give, and that was ultimately going to be my career was just going to have to go on hold for a short while. So I did do that for a bit, but because of the type of nature person that I am, I think I probably did it for about 6 months, but then I set my own business up online. And it was during that actual time that I set up like a small online business selling cards and gifts and things, and also setting up a little business on Amazon because I wanted to learn how to do it. Yeah, so that's kind of a nice little segue into how the career.
Is that when you really like started working on eCom?
Yes, exactly that. So, of course, when you've got 2 little ones at home, you know, I couldn't bear going into the shops. It drove me mad. It's just like, it's so hard going with 2 little kids into a supermarket or a store. So I online shopped all the time. And, you know, sometimes you're awake in the middle of the night with them awake, and I would scroll through Amazon and I'd order things. And it used to frustrate me actually, the shopper journey. And I would, you know, I'd be like, why is that not there? Why can't I find this? And it was from that point where I started to think, you know, really, this is e-category management. This is how can I apply this? And so then I set up my own store, and I thought maybe I could do this on Amazon. I could do my own e-commerce site. So yeah, I learned, and this was before AI. So I managed to learn to build a website, learn how to set up my Amazon account, and it just kept my mind ticking over and in this space. And it, like you said, it very much kind of seeded the thinking and my career direction of where I was going to take it going forward. And it was before really e-commerce was a function.
Oh yeah. Like that around that time is more or less when I started working.
Yeah.
So and I started working in a headhunting company, working in FMCG and retail. And a lot of the work that we did was in the UK at that time. And I remember like we were hiring e-tailing managers for FMCGs, and those were like the first roles that they ever had in e-commerce. And they didn't even know what they were going to hire, right? Because it was a time where there was a question of like, will FMCGs go and will it be like another sales channel? Which is kind of what it's happened at the end, or will it be like they're gonna do DTC, right?
Yes,
so, which is not what's happened.
Yeah,
what were you selling actually on your online store?
Yeah, so I just did a couple of different things. So I knew that. So first of all, my own little D2C site was. I love like humorous, funny birthday cards and funny cards. I love like ones with quite sort of quick. Weird humor. So I used to really love like collecting the cards that really would that I would like to receive, and that I know many of my friends would also find really funny. So I set up this website where you could buy cards, and then you could also get them personalized. It was probably just before like Funky Pigeon and Moonpig had really taken off, and it was that kind of concept, but never as anywhere as good as these guys are now. And then the other thing was I wanted to learn again how to sell on Amazon and understand all about the sponsored ads and sponsored brands and products. So I made gift packs of like a candle, some hand soap and stuff. And I made like 50 of them and then sold them on Amazon. And they went really quickly, which was great. But it meant that when I went in for interviews, when I was ready to return back to work, people said to me, have you got any Amazon experience? I could say, well, actually, yeah, I've done my own store. And they were like, well, that's the best experience. And at that time, that Amazon experience was still pretty fresh and there wasn't a lot out there.
Is that how you went? Because when you went back from your maternity leave, you went to Igloo Group
That's right.
an e-commerce role, total grocery and pure play e-commerce manager. Because you did that work on your own, you were
Yep.
able to get that job, basically, I imagine.
That's exactly it. So it was actually it was Francis Nicholas, who's always been a good friend and
Oh,
colleague
yeah,
of
yeah.
mine. Yeah.
Hello,
So
Francis, if you're
hello,
listening.
Francis. Yeah. So we I think again I spoke to it was a recruitment consultant, and she was asking me like what skills you got, and then I got on a call with Francis. And that was where we had the conversation about, what's background, it's category management, sales, commercial, etc. And then we discussed what I'd been doing in my paternity leave. And he was like, you've probably learned a lot more there than you actually realise. And he was really good at empowering me to say, okay, could you apply that thinking to e-commerce? How would you go to the grocers, for example, and be the thought leader of how, because the frozen aisle is notoriously quite clinical and a bit boring to shop in a physical store. He was like, so what could we do online? What would you recommend? And so I kind of was left very free to create like a blueprint of what we could take to the likes of Sainsbury's and Tesco's. This was obviously way before the likes you had to pay for everything. So they were much more open and flexible to test and learn. So yeah, that was pretty much where I moved into Nomad Foods, working with Francis and the team, and upskilling the grocery teams as well, so that when they were going into the calls, we were talking to them about what we could do with e-commerce, which was pretty important when it came to lots of Tesco's, because it was on that upward trajectory, that was very rapid.
Yeah, it was a time where like the most important thing was to be in e-commerce, no? More
Yeah.
than to set up that team and set up the relationship with the retailer. Now it's obviously become more complex, sophisticated,
Yes.
and complicated at the end of the day.
Yes, it has, and very competitive. So like I said, I remember the days where we'd be able to go to Sainsbury's and say, could we try adding in a digital shelf and put these products in and cross-reference these and dual site? And they were just like, yeah, sure, we'll do that. And they gave us the data afterwards. But yeah, obviously now it's become much more competitive. It's being monetized, and I understand why. But yes, it just shows how the landscape's changed so dramatically in a relatively short space of time.
Yeah. And then the rest has been history for you, because you've done e-commerce at Nestle, at Kraft Heinz, now at Brown-Forman.
Yeah.
And you did else. That's the other thing I wanted to ask you about as well, of like unusual career moves and brave career moves, I would say. The fact that you did consulting on your own for a while as well.
Yeah.
How was that? I mean, I know that it was in line with moving to France, right?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. So that was the main driver behind it. I sadly had to leave Nestle, which was quite a tough decision to make, because it was due to my husband moving across to France with his work. That actually drove that decision. So I ended up, thinking, well, I don't know what to do. What should I do? I'll set up as a consultant. So I won't lie, it can be a little bit lonely at times. But yeah, I managed to land some clients, whether it's some contract work or consulting. And it was just really enlightening to kind of work across different customers and categories to see just the similarities of all the issues that are cropping up, really understanding about the search rankings, how they can influence it. But again, a big gap was just around knowledge and capabilities in this space. So yeah, I did do consulting for a short stint, which was great. It kind of allows that entrepreneurial thing. So, I really enjoy that creative part as well. That can't always be exercised in this role as much, but it did allow me to develop and build my own website, allow me to do some content. So I did enjoy that side of it.
Yeah, and as you said, I know it myself. It can be lonely. It can be, but it is. If you want to like be on a learning curve, that is it. That is it, right? Because you're all alone. You need to really listen to also what people are telling you, because then you develop their solutions based on that, right? So what is your role now at Brown-Forman? What are you doing? What are you doing right now?
What am I doing? So yeah, who knows? No, so I had the pleasure of working for Brown-Forman, which not everybody knows. They're like, who's that? And I've been at a couple of conferences lately, and I say I work at Brown-Forman, and people go, that's great. And then you see a bit of a blank look. But I say, you might not know Brown-Forman, but you will know Jack Daniels. So yes, their core brand is Jack Daniels, but we also have a whole large portfolio of bourbons and also malt whiskey. So we do Woodford Reserve and Gin Mare, etc., and Diplomatico, one of my favorites. So yeah, I'm the head of e-commerce for Europe. So that spans across predominantly 6 countries. all varying in different cultures and different levels of maturity by market. And I'm responsible for I think it's around about 4 or 5 e-sub channels. So looking at omni-channel, Amazon, then you've got pure play like Ocado, etc. We've also got quick commerce, which obviously isn't as big as some of the other ones, and also B2B. So yeah, we've got quite a few e-sub channels that I look after, and I have a team in each market, and we work closely together to make sure we share experiences across market to understand where we can make efficiencies and also just build those capabilities as well for those varying levels of maturity in each market.
Is having this perspective of different markets, do you still feel like Europe is a territory of many different speeds when it comes to e-com? And I think it's very different habits as well with consumers, no?
Very much so. So yes, it's one of those ones where when you're trying to understand each market, I would try and make sure that I kind of, like you said, you have to make sure you listen and understand the cultural nuances. And you kind of have to be almost a bit like it's like a cultural chameleon. You kind of got to understand and adapt to each one. There's no one size that fits all when it comes to ways of working, routines. And like you said, the shopping habits can also vary. So for example, as you'll know, the UK is very well established, quite a saturated market in terms of online, but it's much more integrated into the way that people are working, and also the larger percent of sales go through online. Move that across to another market, say like in France, where whilst it is a big market, there's still very much a local cultural habit of wanting to support local small shops. So there's a slightly different role for it to play there. So and again, in markets like Spain and Italy, there's big potential there, but it's off a small base, but the growth is rapid, but it's much sort of earlier in its level. It's like kind of that seeding stage, as we would call it.
Spain and Italy, I think when it comes to alcohol consumption, they're really like on trade first, right?
Exactly. Yeah, definitely. Yes. And I guess, the UK has moved much more from, even when I was at Diageo, it was moving from on trade to off trade. So it's all around a different kind of messaging, different shopper journey, different shopper language that you have to use. So yeah, like you said, that's just where the nuances in each market comes from.
Yeah. And you mentioned you're doing B2B. I know that you talked to me about because people maybe wondering B2B, what does that doing in e-commerce?
Yeah, and it's do you know what? It's one of the projects I'm probably most proud of, and I think I said this to you. I was like, it was one of these sort of career defining moments where I went into I started working at Brown-Forman, and one of the key projects we wanted to launch was this eB2B, and we wanted to do it specifically in France because it's such a fragmented market, as I just touched upon in there around about staying local. You've got all these small individual bottle stores, and this cultural nuance is very much that at the weekend people will be going to see family or friends for a dinner or an apéro, and they always will take a gift, and that's often chocolates or something from patisserie and or a bottle of champagne or whiskey. So this is where it's so important for us to understand these shopper habits, but they're really notoriously hard to actually get in contact with, because currently what they're doing is buying from various other sources, but it doesn't mean that some of our rarer malt whiskies or some of our rums are widely distributed or available.
And I guess that depends on like who the owner is and what they like and what the demographic is. It's hard to like cater to each and one of them and do a personalized offer, no? I guess
exactly
to each store owner.
Yeah, I mean, and you think, you've got something like, if you look at Monaco in Paris, for example, you're going to have a much sort of high disposable income. You've got cities, you're going to want a much more kind of super premium top end offering of the rarer malts. Whereas there will be other ones in sort of more rural France that would be happy with a kind of midline branding or offering.
What are these stores called, by the way, in France?
They're called Cavists, which is it's like so it's short for like a cave. So in France, a lot of the homes have like a cellar, and they call them caves, and it'll be where they keep all their red wine and malting spirits, etc. So
got it.
Yeah, so that was part of the plan. Is like, how do we connect? How do we digitize this shopper journey? So we set about a plan of executing, this new channel. And it was so complicated. At the beginning, it's one of those things where you think it should be relatively straightforward. You set out a plan. And as ever, the best laid plans never always go according to. But it was one of those ones where you learn on the job. And I was so proud of the team that we had as well. We had about 20 different stakeholders from various different functions, from anything from customer service to looking at supply chain, finance, branding, etc. But they were all adding it on to their current roles and learning it as we went. And, and it really was that kind of agile sort of situation, which you don't always get exposure to in large corporates. And it was really wonderful to be a part of it. Don't get me wrong, it was very stressful at times. Definitely got a few grey hairs in the process, and I'm sure some of the team did as well. But it's now live. We're able to connect with multiple Cavists across France in this fragmented, notoriously hard to connect with market segment. And we're selling some of our most sort of premium whiskies and portfolio and gifting as well, which is really important for this particular type of customer. So this very much lends itself, what we were talking to you about before, is this cultural understanding. So it's been live about 4 months, and we're now sort of full on into our busiest period.
I imagine this period must be super key, no? Like Christmas and so on. I mean, dinners with the family and friends all the time.
Exactly.
So what does the customer experience look like for the Cavist when they go and buy on this platform?
Yeah, and we've tried to keep it really tailored and also personal, because we're looking at selling the more premium ends of our portfolio. We want to make sure that the Cavist, actually, we build a relationship with them. So it's, whilst there are lots of tools and automation tools out there, we're also very aware that in order to give that tailored approach, there sometimes does just need to be a human at the other end. So what they'll do is they'll log onto the site, they will apply for an account. We will check out their account. It will get vetted, and then within a couple of days they will get an okay. They can also look to apply for credit as well, which is also very important for these smaller local shops. And then they'll have a exposure to the whole portfolio of about 100 plus, 120 plus SKUs, some of which are exclusive to the site, and specific around, like I said, this gifting or super premium offering that are very appropriate for some of these stores, some of these Cavists.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing, like, what maybe some people don't know about, like, the liquor industry is that you have, like, these ultra premium propositions.
Yes.
In which you don't even need to sell that much to actually make quite a lot of revenue.
Yes, and you're right. These big businesses, and having worked in several of them, it's all around high volume, turning over high volume. This actual model flips it on its head. This is about smaller volume, higher value. So one of the biggest offerings that we had, which was probably one of the most complex parts, was the supply chain piece. Was how do we offer small, high value mixed cases? Because these Cavists can't buy big pallets. They haven't got that outlay for stock and obviously being able to tie up cash in that stock. So they want a smaller case of mixed bottles, and that's something that we work really hard, again, to be able to tailor that offering to those Cavists.
Yeah, interesting. No, and it's like in luxury companies, for example, that they have like account managers that look after individual people. They're like, there's these like super high value customers. I mean, it's a bit different.
Yeah, the high net worth ones. You're right.
I think there's an interesting parallelism there. And in your time in e-commerce, which is now a bit over 10 years.
Oh, no, don't. Yeah, I think it's about 14. Where's it?
Well, look how much your kids have grown in this time, right?
Yeah, too much. They're taller than me now.
Yeah, well, you should be happy about that.
True.
But it is interesting how e-commerce has evolved in FMCGs, no? Like, it was at the beginning, as I said, like a bit of a question of what it would be.
Yeah.
Then it was like, there was like a few good years, I would say, 2016 to COVID times, where it was like a sales channel, a bit, and which was gaining importance. And now I think we've seen it become again diluted in the company in a good way, like, because we've seen how digital can also push marketing, obviously, how it can also be a driver for change for the whole company. Anyway, how do you see it?
Yeah, I think you've summarised it up quite nicely there. And I think we do need to move into the next phase. So I think, like you said, a few years ago, it's very much around how do you recruit these specialists? How do you get people in, these experts, to help future-proof the company, to help drive the channel forward? I think now we're at kind of the stage whereby, like you said, it has become a bit more diluted, but I do think that's a good thing. But we do need to, I think, really look at how we embed e-commerce. So I was talking before at some of the conferences, and it's an ongoing theme about silos. And somebody made a comment on LinkedIn going, "Oh, is it still a thing?" And we're like, "Yes, it still is." And I think one of the main root causes for it being a silo is that it's still, the e-commerce is still very much seen and acted upon like this expertise. So you've got your Amazon expertise, you've got the head of eCom and the digital, and they're still kept very separate. And I think there does need to be a transition in the learning and development capabilities program for businesses, so that actually those are no longer in silos and they're not separate functions. It would, in the future, what I would like to see, and I think needs to happen, is that you have omni-channel managers, and marketing is also dual hats in digital and both traditional marketing functions. Because until you have that, those functions and skill set within those traditional structures, you're always going to get silos. And you only get that through really continual training and development of the workforce. Otherwise, these silos will just continue to exist. And so for me, I feel that's where the transition needs to move to, is we've done the expertise bit, we've kept it in a silo for one reason or another. We now need to start to move it towards your average account manager, your key account manager needs to also be very upskilled and skilled in digital and e-commerce, so that they can talk in a multi-channel, omni-channel conversations with their customers.
So learning and development, does that still exist in companies? Because I feel like we're not talking about it at all.
Yeah, and I sadly think it's probably one of those areas that has kind of dried up a little bit. I'm not sure across other ones, but I haven't seen it as much when I've moved through other functions and other companies. I don't see such a heavy tailored sort of learning and development program, and I think. And I mean, it'll be interesting to hear your view on it as well. But what's happened now, a lot of it, I feel, is that you just get sent a link and you just get sent to a website. Whilst that has its place and it has its purpose, I feel like we are still humans and we learn in different ways, and it's not truly going to embed it, and it's all just too easy just to click through.
Yeah.
And so I do think there needs to be a bit of a change up, that when somebody joins a team, or when you've got somebody's moved into a sales or commercial role, that learning and development program really does encompass that digital aspect and e-commerce aspect, because it's this role that actually blurs the lines between those functions. So it's important that everyone's educated and skilled on e-commerce and digital, because it's the way forward, and it's the only way really to future-proof companies.
I think it's just also like a general like culture of learning and development. No, I think it's kind of been lost a little bit. I think it could be that we're kind of trapped in a spiral of like immediacy. So I think that since COVID happened, there's not been like a way, like every year has been like 5 big surprises that, a war in Europe, tariffs, COVID itself. I mean, there's just commodity prices, right? Like you remember the thing of the, what happened in Egypt, in the Strait. What's the name of it?
Yeah, in the is it not the Gibraltar Strait, but was it the Panama Canal? One of them.
The Suez Canal. The Suez Canal.
Right? It's one of them.
All these things that have happened through the years have just created like this spiral of immediacy, where it's been very difficult to plan for stuff, right?
Yeah, that's so true. And I was talking to somebody else about it. We were phrasing it as short-termism, that it's very hard, like you said, to plan and forecast. And I think it kind of makes it's meant that people are having to move into being more reactive.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people as well. We've seen across markets where a lot of people are also, there's lots of restructured things going on. So a lot of people double hatting. So I think, like you said, maybe it's one of these ones that at the moment has been put on a bit of a back burner. But I'm hoping that ideally in the foreseeable future, if things settle down, that we will be able to reinvest time and energy into learning and development, to allow for these seismic shifts that are already happening with the likes of artificial intelligence. It's
I mean, to be fair, I think that there's possible. We're giving out the $1 million idea here, Natalie, but I think there is a space for disruption and then a more interesting value proposition of how L&D can be done, because it's true, like learning patterns have changed. I don't think that like learning through digital could be exciting 10 years ago. I don't think it's no longer exciting anymore. So maybe like to do more like an in-person type of proposition could be more interesting now. But I don't know. Maybe because I'm not in that space. But I'm not seeing much happening in that space. But
and I think
keep this to ourselves. Nobody will listen to this. So.
Okay. No, I think you're right. I think there's absolutely an opportunity there.
So to whoever's there, if they get the idea from us, at least give us credit. You don't need to pay us. You can pay us, but don't. You at least give us credit.
What about? I mean,
but you talk about the silos thing. Isn't the whole retail media thing big forced like companies and trade like sales teams and marketing teams to talk more to each other?
Well, it is, and it isn't. It depends how each company is set up. So again, this can kind of also be almost siloed in it by itself by the fact that it's outsourced. So obviously, a lot of people, as we do, we use third-party agents, we use agencies and experts to help us on the retail media side. But what tends to happen is that's sat within one function, and then that information doesn't always get circulated. The understanding and of the investment and the return isn't always well communicated because it's often kept externally and within a specific function. So I think that also is something that maybe externally functions need to have these agencies need to look at how can they, share the information more cross-functionally internally with businesses, their clients, so us, for example, to make sure that level of understanding and ultimately retaining that investment in this space, because what tends to happen, lack of understanding, then when it comes around looking at budgets, things get cut. And it's often just due to the lack of understanding of the results. I think that the fact that a lot of it is outsourced keeps it in a silo, and also the traditional structures and models of where the budgets are kept are the biggest challenge, and the sort of KPI side of it. So there again, I think really to change the shift and focus on to truly drive value in this digital space and overall for the omnichannel, I would say, is to ensure that that when it comes to looking at cross functions, that everybody is understands the KPIs, and you've got one KPI that stretches across the multiple functions. So I love the fact that marketing gets targeted on awareness, and whilst I do think that is super important, it's ultimately we get paid through conversions, I think there needs to be joint KPIs, and this is where we saw this happen on the eB2B development. We had a team that all set on one or two key KPIs, and they all worked towards that same objective. I think more often than not, still businesses are marketing for awareness, sales for conversion. Joint KPIs need to happen.
I think that's why like these small brands can be very successful, right? Because they don't have like the huge team, so they just go all in a coordinated effort across trade and marketing and so on and so forth.
Yes,
it's kind of seamless. Like I saw a great example about Prime, right? The drink. Then there's the question if it will resist through time. But I think it's a great example of how they went to market. Also, Feastables, the Mr. Beast chocolate. Like everybody's seen that, right?
Yep.
Somehow. That
is amazing.
That's a very interesting one and a great opportunity for L&D, right? I think that go into companies and teach them how this approach works, I think is very interesting.
Yes.
What about AI? How do you see?
What about AI?
What's
that?
You heard about it?
Anything?
How is that affected? Like, if for the very basic level, how's that affected? Like your job as an e-commerce and as a head of e-commerce for Europe?
Yeah, so I think first of all, I'm massively excited about it, and I do use it on a daily basis, and I do think in the short term future, it is a game changer. It already starting so now. But I do think at the moment we're only scratching the surface. So, we're only using it at the minute, really. We've got the tools and the capabilities to do it, which is fantastic. I'm super proud that as a business we have that. But yeah, I think in terms of how we're using it at the moment, it's very much just for writing emails, checking some data, etc. It's probably not really optimizing it to its full potential. But I think in the short term future, it really will help us move away from that sort of manual heavy lifting, sort of repetitive work. So simple things like we said before, content, whether it's written, etc., whether it's images, product titles, etc. So it will allow the teams to move away from that repetitive sort of more admin task focused, to being able to be more creative and strategic. So I think that's going to be a real positive part of it. However, it has also added a layer of complexity. So when you look at it now, some business, we're still looking at SEO, but you need to start looking at LLM models and what you need to do for conversational optimization and agentic AI, etc. It's going to take, when we refer back to like capabilities in L&D, really, you'll get a first mover advantage if you're quick on this. So this is the sort of thing that we need to look at as businesses, to think, how do we get ahead of this? Because it took businesses quite a long time just to get to the SEO part. You think how long that was?
Yeah. And now to like reframe that.
Yeah.
Oh no. Yeah, but don't, like you mentioned that like AI will get rid of like a lot of like the admin tasks. Like I wonder what will like graduates do.
Yes, that is a worry.
And there's a bit of a crisis. It's like a two-way thing, because I did hear from someone recently that they're having an issue, or they're having an issue, and they're hearing other FMCG companies having an issue attracting young graduates. And probably all the young people want to be YouTubers and influencers these days anyhow. But that's a bit of an issue, and there's a disconnect there, no?
Yeah, and that's a whole other topic, isn't it? Is the education system really teaching the children the skills that they need to know to go into this new future of the digital AI and how to use it? And I think someone says it's not going to take your job, but it will. People that don't use it will be the ones that will be that won't have the advantage. So it's around, how do we use it? And it's funny because obviously my children are doing homework, and I'm like, don't use AI. You're not allowed. It has to be, But you're thinking, well, actually, it's one of these things where they need to learn to use it. It's all around how you get the right prompts, how you get you get the most out of it.
I think it's also finding the right balance between when to adopt it and when to use it. But I also see an alarming number of people that are using it to take shortcuts and not to think and not to research things.
Yes. I think that is an issue. Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah, right. Well, I think Natalie and you and me could, it's funny because we always run into each other at events, and this is probably like the first time we've had like probably quality time. Next time we coincide, let's go for dinner or something.
Yeah, that would be lovely. I think we could talk for ages, I think.
Yeah. Every podcast has an end, and we'll end it with our classic question.
Yes.
Which is, if you went back to the beginning of your career, what's that one only piece of advice you would give yourself?
Yes, and I've been giving this a little bit of thought, and I think, given the experiences that I've had, and especially thinking more to the most recent one with eB2B in France, I would not obsess over perfect plans, because the number of times I had to pivot, adapt, change, go around, that for me is probably the best thing. Is don't obsess over perfect plans. And I guess even better so, probably should have bought some Bitcoin right as it started. That would have been nice. I wouldn't have to work.
So many things we could have done, right? Buy the right lottery ticket and so on.
Yeah, shoulda, woulda, coulda.
Well, Natalie, I learned a lot from this conversation. First of all, I learned that you were born in Kenya.
There we go.
Was a lithographer. Which, I have to double check what that is again.
It's okay, I had to.
The fact that you started e-commerce because you started on your own.
Yeah.
I love the fact that also you've taken two, again, brave moves that a lot of people will not take, like taking an extended maternity leave, going on your own. And sometimes people will think, oh, I can't do that because later it will kill my career. And I think that you're a good example of that not being the case. And that's what we like here, like seeing unusual examples. And the fact that I love the example of eB2B. I think that's going to be, it already is, but it's going to be a very, very, very hot space, because obviously the physical store, the small store, fortunately, is going nowhere. So it's a great example of how big companies can like empower that, because I think that sometimes big companies tend to only want to work with big companies, but these smaller ones are super important. We talked also a little bit about how to avoid silos. You talked about the figure of omnichannel managers, so that will be interesting to see. L&D, giving out the $1 million idea and a bit of the future of AI and what we'll see there. So that was great, Natalie. Thanks for joining.
Thanks so much. I've super enjoyed it. And really enjoyed our conversation. And thanks very much for your time as well, Daniel.
And we'll see you soon in one or the other conference. Actually, I have to say, Natalie, should have said when I introduced you, but you're usual speaker in conferences. So hopefully you'll be, as a listener, lucky enough to see her. I do look forward to running into you again very soon.
Likewise. Thanks ever so much and take care and hope to see you soon.
Thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next episode of the FMCG Guys every Wednesday and every Saturday. Have a great one.
The content in this podcast episode is provided for general informational purposes only. By listening to our episode, you understand that no information contained in this episode should be construed as advice from Dwyer Partners SL, doing business as the FMCG Guys, or the individual author, host, or guests, nor is it intended to be a substitute for research on any subject matter. Reference to any specific product or entity does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by Dwyer Partners SL. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. Dwyer Partners SL expressly disclaims any and all liability or responsibility for any direct, indirect, incidental, special, consequential, or other damages arising out of any individual's use of, reference to, or inability to use this podcast or the information we presented in this podcast.